In compliance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, entitled Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as specified in the Act. Proper notice of this public meeting was provided in the notices of March 26, 2012. Said notice was posted at the entrance of the Board of Education offices, mailed to the Nutley Sun, the Star Ledger, the North Jersey Herald News, and the Nutley Journal. Mailed to the Nutley Township Clerk, advertised in the Nutley Sun on April 5th, 2012, posted on the district website. This is an official meeting. As I'm sure you do not need to be reminded, tomorrow is September 11th, and I ask that as we stand, we'll have a moment of silence for those who lost their lives on that day, and for those who have defended us in our freedom since then. And also following the flag salute, Mr. Kandari and the Nutley High School Chamber Singers will be with us, and they can sing some of the things that will be at the memorial service tomorrow morning. And then after that, I think Mr. Kandari may have an announcement. So we stand for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Mrs. Danczak Martin. Here. Ms. Flynn. Here. Mr. Kaczynski.
Here.
Dr. Reed.
Here.
Mrs. Russo. Here. Mr. Scolaro is not with us this evening. Ms. Sherman. Here. Mr. Spizzato.
Here.
Mr. Kupka.
Here. Mr. Kandari.
I don't know who we should face.
Face the audience.
Face the audience.
Oh, just facing me, you know your spot. Leo, come on now. We, behind you up. We're preparing for the 9/11 service tomorrow, which is at 10 a.m. in front of Town Hall. Each year we perform there, and the town has a nice memorial for the 3 Nutley residents that lost their lives, and commemorating, of course, all the lives that were lost on that day. And it's always a challenge for us because we're in school. This is the 3rd day of school. And so we always say we start, September 11th and end graduation. But this group is our high school chamber choir. They're our most advanced choir, and they kind of step up to the plate. We are going to use music for reference because we're forgetting some words.
Oh
we've had, over the years, we're very lucky to have such a supportive board and administration to have a music program that really has taken off, and we're thrilled that we were so successful here in Nutley. And this year, it's been a lot of new ideas on how we can make our music classes, what we offer in the music classes, how that can benefit other classes, whether it's writing assignments for our choir students and different cross-curricular, multicultural things that we're getting into. And it's just really exciting to be part of this new kind of vibrant school community that we have, and I think it's a great mix. We are excited because two of our students here, Matthew O'Donnell and David Jung here, they were selected to the All-Eastern Choir this year. So they go through regions and they all take it. They have an All-Eastern Conference. It's going to be in Hartford, Connecticut this year. And because they were going, you have the opportunity, and we've been doing this I've been here 14 years now, and we've been doing this for 14 years, you have the opportunity to submit tapes that other educators or the people who run the conventions listen to. They're blind, you just send a blank CD, not a blank CD, but a CD that doesn't say who you are, where you're from, and they listen, and we've been setting them for years and years and years and never get accepted. But these guys were going, so I said, well, let's try again. So we sent CDs for our chamber choir, this group, and our concert choir. And our concert choir was chosen out of 8 schools, the Eastern Seaboard from New Hampshire to Florida. They chose 8 schools to highlight the best choirs on the East Coast. And so we're going to be singing. So these guys are in the All-Eastern Choir, and we're taking 110 students to perform the same weekend. So we're really excited. It should be a great experience for our program and for the kids. The ceremony is always very nice, and it's going to be beautiful weather. We'll be on the lawn of Town Hall tomorrow.
What time is it?
10 o'clock it starts. 10 o'clock tomorrow. Now we're going to go back to practice.
Thank you very much. Correspondence? Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Am I on? Hello. Thank you. I want to welcome everybody back for the 2012-2013 academic year. We had an extremely successful opening to the year. We've done a number of things differently. We're on day 3 back with students, and there's already much to report. So please bear with me. We had 2 professional days with staff before we opened for students. During that time, we ran professional development and teamwork sessions with the staff, including our new curriculum as was presented to the board, as well as a number of new procedures. I think largest among for the teachers was the rollout of real time. Successful rollout, I shall say, thanks to Mr. Levine and his sleepless week, but making sure that our staff was prepared, taking attendance and finding the appropriate information, making sure they could build their grade books and troubleshooting problems. So from our administration right on down to our faculty and staff, a big thank you to everyone for making that so successful. As well, as part of real time, we were able to roll out our parent portal. Parents able to access information on the web about their students. What I do want to say is a large thank you to the parents and the community for being flexible, consistent, and certainly patient. When you're rolling out a system as new and as large as this, there are bound to be some bumps, and I will say that everyone was forthcoming, they communicated, and again, thanks to Mr. Levine, and again, the principals, as well as Ms. Villani and myself, emailing, making phone calls, actually in the system, making sure things are working. At the end of the day, I think it was a very successful rollout, and it's just an example of the things to come. In the parent portal, again, basic demographic information and the all-important schedules for the opening of the year. But there will be so much more, and look forward to working both with the parents and the staff to make sure that the portal is everything it can be. Certainly a thank you to Mr. Villier and the counselors, as well as the Office of Special Services and our registration department for making all this possible. as well. We're going to continue moving forward and answer any questions as we can. I want to thank Mr. Nicolette, the custodians, the maintenance staff, as well as the grounds for getting the building in tip-top shape for opening. I know that there were concerns, and one of the things I want to communicate to the board and to the public is, as the concerns are raised, we are addressing them. Just because the temperature has dropped from the 90s into the 70s doesn't mean we weren't aware of some issues in the building, and those are being taken care of now so that when the temperature does rise again, students can continue to learn in a comfortable environment. Also want to thank Mr. Vienmeister, Mr. Levine, and all of our technicians, including the student staff, who worked tirelessly in the heat, dragging cable and the rest to make sure that our tech was up and running so that staff could teach and students could learn. One of the major focus areas of our opening was our strategic plan. And as part of the strategic plan, we talked about the different ways people can become involved. We have 6 action teams that were created that are headed up by district administrators. Those action teams are meeting with me and Ms. Villani before the end of September, at which time they will then leverage whatever means necessary to communicate to the public and the staff. We're looking for people who are passionate about what they read, passionate about the district, and are committed to helping us out to join those teams which inspire them the most. Those teams will be setting year 1 goals. We want to ensure that we're not another one of the districts that writes a beautiful strategic plan and 5 years later looks at it and says, what a beautiful strategic plan. I wish we had achieved it. Our goal is to make sure that we're constantly moving ourselves as a district forward. To that end, the action teams will be creating year 1 focus goals as well as an agenda and a timeline. There are board liaisons assigned to each of the action teams so that we can create seamless communication with the public. And our goal is that come May and June, we will have presentations on each of the 6 action items and see how far we move forward. I wanted to update the board on our solar. We're continuing to move forward with our exploration with the PPA. Special counsel, hired previously, is reviewing the documents and will make recommendations to us on how best to proceed. Speaking of proceeding, I, for the past year, continue to say that we want Nutley to be the kind of district that, regardless of the conversation, people point to and say, that's where they do it right. As an example, if you recall last year, we supported one of our students through his transition. And during the course of that transition, we learned a great deal about new lifestyles as well as ourselves as a district. We've in fact numerous times by professionals, and I've shared those with you, but in the past week, we've had a few school districts reach out to us because we've been recommended as an example and a guide to those districts which are now facing similar situations. And so I did want to point out that through Aiden's courage, but also through the work of our staff, specifically at the high school, but certainly throughout the districts, we're not only supporting our students, but we're now helping other districts support theirs. So I definitely want to mention that. Definitely an accommodation for them. Speaking of our students, and I have it here somewhere, the first issue of the Maroon and Gray came out. I don't know if everyone was aware. The first thing I want to point out is that the simple fact that I'm holding this is because the editor-in-chief, Ms. Varali Dave, as well as her staff, took it upon themselves to come in before school started, which I guess was unprecedented, and put together the first article, Welcome Back Kids, so everybody had information in their hands and let people know resounding that they're here. This is going to be a great year for the Maroon and Gray. But I did want to point out a few things. The first is the headline story, Constitutional Convention Clarifies Controversies. I want to point out to the board again, this was a real-life situation that we had to address. Could have definitely been a negative situation, but based on our philosophy, we're trying to give students exposure to real-life situations to turn them into teachable moments. Instead of just changing policy, as we could have, or process at the high school, or updating our student handbook, we actually brought all the students in. Actually, Mr. Williams didn't give him full credit, him and the staff. He and the staff brought the students in and challenged them with the situation to kind of work through the issues as real governing agencies do, and to come up with a more respectable, more effective solution, which is, I think, what they did. The students walked away with nothing else, not only talking about the solution, but talking about the process. And that's really where we want to go with most of our education. We want to make sure we're challenging our students beyond the textbook with authentic learning situations, things that they can then develop in themselves and carry with them and reapply to new situations. That said, they also tackled in the first issue, Beneath the Fold, changes in the Honor Society. And I was excited to see that students are paying attention to the work of the academic committee, the board, and the administration. Not just talking about the GPA requirement, but also talking about the more inclusive process that we've rolled out with the extra induction and the support we're giving to students so they can achieve their goals. It's not just something that's on the students solely, but we want to have processes that support everyone as they work to achieve goals like this. And it's good to know that the students are aware of this work, but also that they're involved in the conversation. It seems they have a lot to say. This brings me to the last and I think most important point for now. In our strategic plan, we state very clearly that we value communicators. And it's one of the things that we've been pushing. How can we better communicate with the community, with our staff, with each other? And we're constantly pushing the envelope to try to make sure we're effective communicators, both so we're efficient, but also that we model effective communication for our students. That said, we can't always get every message out in the best possible way, and so I wanted to update the board on some of the changes, and more so the public, on some of the changes that have happened over the summer, academically and curricularly. Specifically, I'm speaking about the elementary schedule. Changes have been made over the course of 6 months, process back and forth, and I want to make sure that everyone's clear. Like all school districts, sometimes we are confined by budget, but we've been doing our best all year long and moving forward to make sure that our budget is not defining who we are, but our creativity is, and that every time we make decisions, it's for the good of all students and for the comprehensive program. At the elementary level, for this year, we're currently employing 4 art teachers. There are 5 elementary buildings. These 4 teachers are working together, they have been since the summer, to create a consistent program for all students. They will each work 1/5 of the year in every building, lending their specific expertise and unique approaches to art and its importance to all of our students. In the past, each building has had somewhat of a different program. This has certainly impacted our art program as the students have come together in 6th grade. In this respect, the art teachers are getting together, focusing on their areas, teaching one another, but also ensuring a consistent program, K-6, so that when we enter 7th grade, students have had similar exposure to all the different areas of art, opportunities to experience and work in all the different areas, and therefore hopefully a more consistent group coming up to 7th grade. This has also allowed us to infuse the curriculum and the academic experience with other pieces that we've been talking about all year. The first is technology. As a school district, we try and keep up with all the things that technology challenges us and allows us to do in the classroom. And we're not always completely able based on the core curriculum content standards and the realities of our classroom. However, we are now able to schedule Ms. Osija, our computer specialist, into every building during that part of that extra schedule. She's actually able now to bring tech in ways that sometimes we can't do as a regular classroom teacher, expanding how they use technology both in the classroom but also in their lives beyond the classroom. Second, with bullying, obviously still a key concern. As you may or may not know, but we went and we hired more guidance counselors, which were absolutely necessary for a multitude of reasons. One of the changes that we're able to make with this schedule is that our new K-6 guidance counseling professionals will be working with our students on character and life skills education. So every single student K-6 will receive this form of education. Our goal again being proactive and teaching students about situations rather than reacting and punishing them for situations. So the new schedule allows that to happen. Finally, and it seems to be getting the most conversation around town, has been our gifted and talented specialist, Mrs. Napolitano. She will absolutely participate in the rotation as well, bringing enrichment to every single K-6 student rather than the small group of K-6 students that she's been working with to this point. In the past, she's rotated a day in each building, pulling out only identified students. While she will continue to do this and pull out students, she will now also expose all of our students to the kind of enrichment that goes beyond any individual curriculum and engages all of our students in ways that build confidence and suggest a greater buy-in in school in general for our students. I received recently numerous phone calls, and as districts around, I understand the fear because a lot of districts, when budgets get tight, they cut gifted and talented. As the people that have been talking to me throughout the year understand, certainly as the board members do, I'm absolutely committed to supporting all levels of students, raising rigor for everyone, and certainly making sure we support gifted and talented. One of the things I've been trying to make through the conversation is that pull-out program, while it seemed like it was the best we could do with the resources we had, is certainly not a gifted and talented program. Once a week for an hour, certain projects and experiences do not make a gifted and talented program. One of the things I talked to Ms. Napolitano about when I came here, and certainly when Ms. Villani came on, was my hope that we would actually work together to develop a comprehensive gifted program where all students would benefit, especially those who identified as gifted and talented, including those beyond the core academic areas, which is where most districts, because it's easiest, focus their attention. Because of that, we leave out gifted students in so many other areas and limit the experiences that they could have and the learning that all students can have based on what those students can do. So I want to make clear that while we may be making changes, we're making changes to move everything forward. If you look at my work previously as an example, with the exceptional professionals I had in my previous district, we followed best practice as national standards and research show for identifying gifted and talented students and supporting them using behavior, not test scores. Because it's easier to quantify something, people seem to jump and gravitate to numbers. They've been doing that for a very long time to identify giftedness, when all the research shows giftedness is identified through behavior. Passion, ability, talent, and a willingness to continue to push even when failing. In my previous district, we built such a system where we raised the bar for every student by giving the teachers training and resources across the board, so that every single student received more rigorous general education, the opportunity to explore their passions, gifted or not, beyond the classroom, and identify those students who are gifted by their behaviors and their work. This also allowed us to expose gifted students to curriculum and work that was rigorous to them all day long, every day, not 1 or 2 hours a week. And that's what we're moving toward. By allowing it this shift in schedule, we're taking a huge step forward in bringing this district the same kind of program. I want to make sure that every single one of our students benefits from every dollar spent in the district. That being said, we have very creative, very committed professionals here, and I'm sure we can always find a way. I know some people are concerned with changes in schedule that we're going to lose some of the experiences or some of the competitions or some of the events that we've had in the past. Number one, to make clear again, those are not a gifted program. But number two, I'm not worried about losing them because I don't feel like we are. We've just started the year. We have a calendar set out. It's our intention to make sure that our students have the same opportunities to compete in those things this year and moving forward. I'm also sure with the creativity that we have on staff, we can find ways with our resources to make sure those are still avenues open for all of our students. I do want to say, based on that over the first 2 days, both Ms. Maloney and I separately were in every single classroom across the district. I was in every single elementary classroom on Thursday, and every single secondary classroom on Friday. And I have to tell you, I believe, I'm convinced that we have the right staff, the right community, that if working together, and we can achieve things like this so that all of our students, which is the end goal, can achieve things beyond that which we can imagine. But it's going to take some change. And what I want to reinforce is that my phone, my email is always open, my door is always open. And if you have questions, I want to make sure we're filling in the blanks. We're going to try and communicate everything as best as we possibly can. Case in point, still knock on wood, end of September, the new website. We'll be migrating to our new website. Not just a new look, but more effective, more efficient communication. We want this to be the #1 spot for people anywhere, not just in Nutley, who want to know anything about the school district to go to, so that you always know if you need information, there is a resource there for you. If we don't have what you need, though, please continue to contact us. Looking forward to a great year. Thank you for the board for supporting all the changes that we've moved forward this summer. And Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, one question. Discussion about the different how talented now, or you want?
I think that would be under old business or new business. Board Secretary.
With respect to the bond refinancing, I participated in a conference call last week with our financial advisor and Moody's Investments, who is putting together a report and presenting it to their committee for a rating on our bonds. We are expecting that rating tomorrow afternoon, after which the official statement for the sale of the refinancing of the bonds will be posted, and hopefully the sale will be completed this week. This evening, we have a presentation from the district's food service company, Chartwell's, and I'd like to turn the program over to them right now. And there are several of you here, and I'll introduce Pat Allegretto, who in turn I'm sure will introduce the other members of the Chartwell's team.
Thank you, Karen. I'm Pat Allegretto. I am the district manager for Chartwell's. We do your food service. We're contracted by the district. We brought with us this evening the staff that works here in Nutley and our regional support staff to go over some of the new regulations that the federal government has come out with. Our Vice President, Nancy Quinn, our regional dietitian, Liz Jamont, Lisa Lutz, many of you know, she is the site director. She oversees all of the schools. She's here every single day. She's the point person for any concerns, compliments, suggestions. I'd like to introduce a very important person, Maggie Chalet. She's our chef at the high school. She prepares all the high school meals and the elementary meals with the staff. And our newest addition, Bobby Boatwright, he's our chef in the middle school. Both of these folks have many years' experience in the food service and working with the National School Lunch Program. The major change for this year is the government regulations that changed. So that's what I want to explain a little bit about. We've been in the district, this is our 4th year that we've been hired by the district. And just to give you a little past of what we've done, we've implemented successfully the point-of-sale system in all the schools, the high school, the middle school, and now we fully have integrated the elementary schools. That's for accountability purposes, and it keeps track of the money that children have on account. We renovated all the serving lines and upgraded the equipment in the high school. We put in a full-service made-to-order deli at the middle school. And we were successful with the help of the district to convert Board of Education labor to Chartwell's labor so that the program makes a profit for the district. A lot of that was done through attrition, people that retired. And Chartwell's is committed to building the program and providing nutritious, healthy meals to students. What's new for this year? It's basically the new regulations that were invoked by the federal government. The requirements are for more fruits and vegetables to be served and less grains. They've been reformulated. There will be more changes in 2013 and 2015, but Chartwell's has been proactive. We've been working since 2010 to meet these guidelines with our dietitians and panels of doctors. So the major change is increase in fruits and vegetables, which is a good thing. Children now must take a half a cup of fruit or a half a cup of vegetable for a meal to qualify as a reimbursement. And it's healthier, and children will be, they won't be hungry if they take the additional components of the meal. The government also came out with the Choose My Plate of what you should be eating for healthy lifestyle. So the first thing is to start with a fruit or vegetable. So half your plate should be fruits, or quarter of your plate should be a fruit, and quarter plate a vegetable. The other quarter of the plate should be a grain, and then the last quarter of the plate should be your protein. And of course your dairy, which is a milk. We offer all 5 of these components every day with every lunch. And the child must select at least 3 of those components for it to qualify as a reimbursable meal. We encourage the children to take all 5, but again, we can't force anybody. But now they must take a fruit or a vegetable for the meal to qualify as a reimbursable meal. Here's an example. If you take a vegetable, a fruit, and a milk, that's a meal. If you take a fruit, whole grain, and a lean protein, that's also a meal. If you take a fruit, a whole grain, and a lean protein, that's a complete meal. Well, this is what your children will be seeing in the cafeterias. The daily menus will be posted. There will be big posters of what a reimbursable meal is and what they're encouraged to take. There'll be food group information, and then how to complete your meal, which is what on the previous slide. Another major change for this year, but Chartwell's has been proactive, is the allowable grains and proteins. The grains must be 50% whole grain now, whereas before they didn't have a regulation on that, but Chartwell's has been proactive with that. And the whole grains consist of the whole grain pizza crust, rolls, muffins, cereals, and pancakes. So if you've noticed, the breads are now a little bit smaller. They're two grains, and they're the whole grain. And the pizza has been reformulated. That's a major change. In the middle school and high school, it's a flaxseed crust, and it's a little bit thinner than what we're used to. We've also reformulated the choices in the elementary schools. We're making our own now, our own pizzas. The government also came out with some additional requirements. Before they had minimum requirements but no maximum requirements. Now we have maximum requirements, so that's another reason why the grains had to be reformulated and the encouragement of the additional fruits and vegetables.
Could you explain a little what reimbursement, and I kept saying it, and I'm sure everyone wants to know what you mean by that.
This district is on the National School Lunch Program, which means it gets reimbursements from the federal government and government commodities. In order to qualify for that, the meal has to consist of three of those components that I spoke about. They have to take three of those components to get additional funding. They also subsidize children that are of free and reduced status, so they must take that meal.
Okay, the next one. You said the different pizzas, and we were inside and we had
Yes.
some. Is there different requirements for K to 5? Is that why there is a different style pizza?
Well, the difference is the way we have to do things here, because we don't have the pizzas for the middle school and high school are made on-site. They're served on-site because you have full service lines, whereas in the elementary schools, they're satellite. So they have to be prepared in the high school and shipped over.
So they can't prepare big pies and ship them over?
Well-
That's just a question, because I saw the difference in the pizza. I'm not sure if that's some of the questions we're getting. I had both of them. I like both of them, but I'm not sure about the kids.
I understand that. Well, okay, I'll tell you, but previously we did use an outside pizza vendor.
I understand.
And there were some complaints, and there were they couldn't meet the new requirements, and that's true. It looked more like the pizzas that we serve in the high school and the middle schools. We've had success with the individual pizzas, the way they hold up for transport. But we certainly could look into down the road possibly doing that type of pizza, but it would depend. We also would need
wondering
oven
if we did
space,
like a survey with the kids to find out if
what they
the
love.
kids enjoyed that pizza or not.
We have some kids here with
I mean, I ate them, I like them all. But that wasn't, I just, that's
Okay.
I think we should be looking into. That's it, I have no other questions.
I just wanted to commend Pat and her staff, certainly Lisa, who's here every day. For the audience to understand, we had your children's food tonight for dinner in our board pre-meeting. And because I thought it was important that we see what our children are eating, even though my grandson has come back with his feedback from Spring Garden, and I know other board members have had input from their children, and I was impressed with the servings, impressed with the portions, and I just wanted to commend you for a job well done as far as I'm concerned.
I have ongoing questions. the board has been kept well informed that you're taking a proactive approach as far as no additional sodium and going with the whole grains. We've discussed, even when we had an ad hoc committee on health and wellness, how we could better educate not only our students, but also our parents, so that they're aware when the children come home and say the food tastes differently, that perhaps it's not as heavily salted as it might be at home, or that it's a whole grain pasta rather than a white pasta. Do you have any suggestions how we can better educate our parents that we are very proactive with what we're offering?
Well, the first thing that we did with Karen and Russ is we approved the letter. We put the letter out to inform parents of the changes. So that's the first step. But we'd be happy to come to the PTA meetings or to have the food committee meetings so that we can communicate what's going on. We want to work in partners. We have YAC meetings with the kids so that we can have some samplings. And Lisa can certainly do some samplings in the cafeteria too, where we can schedule certain days, and maybe we can get some help from parents so that the kids could sample some of the things that are new and taste.
Maybe we could do some on our website.
Oh, definitely.
That would be our,
Definitely.
that would be the website.
Or the parents' portal.
Or parent board, or whatever, however we can do it.
I think another thing, Jim, I wanted to mention is that the cooking is nut-free, correct? Which is very important to, I think, a lot of our children that have nut allergies. None of the oils or anything are nut-based.
I have a question. The ordering system, I know last year we had to order 2 weeks in advance. We basically ordered for the week. Is that still in effect?
Yes.
Because I know that's a little difficult sometimes.
I understand that, but we have to order in advance because we have to know. The problem with the elementary schools is that it's not a production kitchen, whereas the high school and the middle school, the kitchen is right there. So the central kitchen where Maggie is and Bobby, they need to know like in advance how many meals to prepare. That's why we need to order in advance. And I believe at one time they did it daily, but that was a function of the school.
Okay.
The secretaries used to do that. So they've asked us to take that responsibility on.
And is there anything maybe that we could do online as opposed to doing paper-based? Because I know, for me, I have 2 children in schools, and sometimes I don't know ahead of time that they want to order, or maybe I don't have anything in the refrigerator, and I want to order something. So
Right.
I don't know if we can make something a little bit more timely.
Well, we can look into that. We talked to Russ about that. We can certainly look into that, but we would never deny your child. If your child wants to eat that day and you haven't sent the money, and you can send the money in, and we can just call additional orders into the main kitchen.
And we have been working on that, but as a case in point, I have children in a different school district, and we have to work for the entire month.
And what?
The whole month. Yeah, we have to order for the entire month.
It's great too, but then if there's people that don't have computers or access to, we'd be happy to look into it, but there still has to be a backup system. And it's the whole production issue that is where we really need to know how many meals.
Thank you.
We're going to do try to make sure that we all as parents sometimes forget something in the kitchen, so we give them the $2, but to make sure that if a kid needs to eat, students can.
Absolutely, absolutely. No one will ever be denied a meal.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the presentation and the food was delicious.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Committee reports.
Yes, Mr. President, recently we had a administration committee meeting, and I want to thank Brenda and Fred and Tom for being there. We reviewed the architects, and we'll be coming back to you we've actually got 2 firms we're going to bring back and review again, and then come to a final output with our architects. Also, on tonight's agenda, you'll see some policy changes that are going through again. One of the policies is what I call a chain of command, but it's called the organizational chart in Russ's term. I'd like to bring one of our past board members down, Vinnie Mascaratola. If you don't know Vinnie Mascaratola, Vinnie was an active board member with us for how many years, Vince?
12.
12 years. And I think for 12 years that he was on the board, along with accomplishing quite a bit, one thing he didn't accomplish before he left was to get an organizational chart, a finalized organizational chart, which tonight then is part of our policy introduction. And this board would like to present this to you. This is a little bit of bust your horns type thing, but he worked very hard and has done a good job, as most of our board members do. And sometimes, as board members, we try to accomplish quite a bit, and he did accomplish quite a bit, as all of us will do in our term on the board. And I know he was looking to get this accomplished, and he worked hard for it, and sorry it took so long, Ben, but new board, new superintendent, and that's the way it is. You certainly can. That's going to stop you now.
I'm quite humbled about getting this. I had no idea why the board secretary called me and asked me to be here. And I said, well, maybe they want to reprimand me, or they want to give me a watch. But I knew I already had the watch, so it wasn't maybe it was a reprimand. But really, thank you very much. And it probably didn't take 6 years to get this as well. So I'm very happy about that. It's great. You guys are going in a great direction. Got a great superintendent. New assistant superintendent, good board, really moving ahead. It's long overdue.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna go right now to the baby before she goes to bed.
That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any other committee reports? Hearing of the citizens. We now come to the portion of our meeting where we allow members of the public to address the board. In this section, we allow questions or comments on only the resolutions addressed in tonight's agenda. Our board regulations allow 20 minutes for these communications. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes. We ask you to try to stay within this requirement. Speakers may speak more than once, only after all others wishing to speak on the topic have been heard. All statements will be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please always remember to state your name and address each and every time you address the board. The first person wishing to speak, please step forward. Resolution items open.
Can I just ask a question? Did anything you brought up?
On resolution items.
No, not yet.
Just on the resolution.
About the food, can I ask a question?
No.
Resolutions. New business.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be there. We'll be there.
All right, come on.
Seeing none, close this portion.
Yeah, let it.
Dr. Review, move resolutions. Please.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to move forward academic resolutions 1 through 3 as stated.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchak Norton?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynch? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes, I abstain on number 2 with regard to my own expenses for the convention in Atlantic City.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lozano?
I'm sorry, you all have to abstain on?
No, we do not have.
No. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. DeCosta?
Yes. Mr. Kaczynski, we move with the administrative resolution.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I move administration resolution number 1 as so prepared.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchak Norton?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynch? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Sposato?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes. Mr. Sposato, will you move finance resolutions 1 through 5?
I move finance resolutions 1 through 5 as written.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Stanchak Norton?
Yes.
Mrs. Lynch? Yes. Mr. Kaczynski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Sposato?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes. I'd like to thank the Yanaqua School PTO for their donation of $5,000. Thank you. Kuzinski, we move personnel resolution.
Yes, Mr. President, I move personnel agenda report, resolution number 1.
Second it?
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Minchuk Morton?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn? Yes. Mr. Kuzinski?
Yes.
Dr. Reed?
Yes.
Mrs. Russo?
Yes.
Ms. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Spizzato?
Yes.
Mr. Gupta?
Yes. Hearing of the citizens. In this section, we allow questions or comments on all school-related matters. The regulations allow 30 minutes for these communications. Again, each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to stay within this requirement. All statements can be directed to me as chairperson, and no one may address the board members individually. Please be reminded that if your statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, irrelevant, or redundant, your participation may be terminated. Please remember to always state your name and address each and every time you address the board. The first person wishing to speak, please step forward.
I'm Walton, 53 Lakeside Drive. First, I'd like to say thank you on an elementary level for addressing the concerns regarding the sharing of the art teacher. I know that was a concern. We had sent some emails back and forth. There were some concerns, and I'm glad to hear that you are going to be infusing education into that curriculum, so thank you. And I also appreciate clarification on the direction that the Gifted and Talented program is going in, because a lot of those parents, at least at Yannicka, were very concerned that they were going to be reducing services. One concern that still remains is for a formal after-school tutoring program. These parents continue to be concerned, as it has been communicated to me, that a large portion of these parents are seeking out private tutoring on their own at their own expense. That's just something for consideration that I want to bring to your attention. And I'm going to switch gears going into the special ed world, which would you want me to address this? Yes.
You mean for everyone across the board is private tutoring?
When it comes, well, tutoring, what is brought to my attention for Yannicka, I don't know if this is concerns regarding the
I mean, it
other
wasn't
4
specific to Gifted and
elementary.
Talented, it was for every
Yes,
student.
yes. Now switching gears to special ed. I had a couple of concerns. I know that we're not going to be finishing the website until the end of September. However, I just want to make sure that there is going to be a clear menu dedicated to special services department, including those specific resources. For example, there was a link that was supposed to be given towards knapsack, which, if you're not familiar with it, it is a parent-based group geared towards the autism population. Also, the CPAC, if you're not familiar with that, it's Special Ed Parent Advisory Council. But we're really a form of getting information out to different members of the community about all of our local organizations, including NAPSAC and PAN, Scarpelli Association, and more. So we were also hoping to get that link put onto that website as well. And I was also wondering, on a separate note, not regarding the website, but really we're looking for more professional development for general ed teachers. And we've discussed this before for children who have disabilities. And I know you are doing a lot of professional development, but I'm just not sure if they're being educated in the areas of inclusion, as inclusion, pro-inclusion. And it really is the way that, the nation is going. And I'm not really sure that these teachers even really know how to implement an IEP or what an IEP is. So I don't know if you have any formal plans on providing that type of education or development for our teachers. So I was just curious to see if that is something that is in the works or going to be in consideration for the future. And that's it.
Okay. Sorry. Ma'am. As far as the website, as you know, we're in the beta version now. We've been playing around. Special Services has its own section. easily found in departments, direct special services, and anything under the sun will be found there.
Okay.
There's an outside meeting Thursday, correct?
That's great.
Yes, Mr. Monell and I will both be there.
Okay.
As we stated at the last meeting as well, once we get the website up, we're looking for some of the people in the different organizations, any of the organizations that are part of the community, to come to us. We can train, we can actually hand over parts of our site right to you. So not just the link, but depending on how integrated you want to be with the website, any of the organizations will have the ability to coming to us, looking at someone that we can put on our website.
Okay, very good.
So whether it's just a link or it's actually part and parcel, we can absolutely be able to find under special services.
Okay.
I also would not be lying if I didn't tell you that we had a conversation regarding inclusion for teaching this morning. Not knowing you were coming to the microphone today, it's definitely a high priority for me because it comes back to instruction.
Right.
And how we're teaching all students.
I understand.
I do want to let you know one of the things with Mr. Molino now here on staff, we're looking to define a true co-teaching model. Which is only a partial form of inclusion, but also then getting to every general ed teacher. One of the things, steps forward we have made though, with real time, and the teachers will be giving us really solid feedback on this, it's only day 3, is that we now log in, all the IEP and Final Form information are all in the computer, and they pop up every time you look at an individual student. So no more passing folders or walking down an office and having to sign. We actually, every single teacher comes in, they can see their whole roster before they get there, and all that information is there. Now, as of now, we had to scan IEPs and put them in PDF form so they're not, you can't interact with them. But our special services moving forward that we're going to be doing is any new IEP, whether we go to the outdoor revision or we have a new student coming in, they're all being built in real time specifically, so everything's going to be manipulable, searchable, analyzable.
As long as they're reading them.
That's the issue.
You know, you can leave it worse than water, we've discussed this.
Well, I can tell you without even, the good news is without even addressing the issue, we have teachers coming to us excited that they're there. So the teachers were looking for them. And I give them all the credit because they were very happy that it was right in front of them, they get all their information from the kids. So, I mean, that's got to be a good sign. But we definitely do have plans to make sure that we're all looking at all aspects of instruction. And general ed inclusion is a key component of that.
And there is going to be some sort of professional development geared towards the general ed hoc.
Well, we've had members of the child study team last year come forward and talk about the need for that. And they have a ton of ideas about it. Always the question is going to be time. So the answer is yes.
So there is going to be a plan in
Yes,
place.
exactly.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
This lady's.
Don't get nervous.
Shut up.
Good evening. My name is Sylvia Haynes. I live at 16 Cottage Place. I have 3 children in Spring Garden School. My main reason for coming today is due to rumors that I was hearing about how the GT program is going to be affected. While I can understand, the limitations of the program, it is very important to the children that are identified gifted and talented, and it is nice that they have that enrichment that they do not receive anywhere else. I have a 6th grader who was identified, began the program twice a week with 3 different teachers servicing 5 different schools. The program was cut in half, where she was only receiving 1 day of service, and only 1 teacher remained, which I feel is a disservice to the children that are identified, where I understand that you want to include everyone, bring everyone up to the level. The children that were identified are now being left behind. My 4th grader was just identified to be tested for GT. And now I hear this. I'm very disappointed. I understand, the limitations, and I appreciate that there are limitations, but I feel like I want to clarify exactly what it means, what it's going to mean for the GT program as it stands right now. How many days they're going to miss. I'm concerned about continuity with what they're learning in GT, so if there is still going to be a GT program, however, they're missing days here and there, there's no continuity. So these children are losing out. So I just wanted to clarify, what does it mean to the GT program as it stands right now? The children were receiving, not an hour, because what's the period, 42
40
minutes? Right, it's not even a full hour.
Right.
I want to hear from the board what exactly, or from the superintendent, what does it exactly mean to the students that were identified GT?
And again, just so I'm clear, while I do want to maximize resources for all students, I want to make sure, like we were talking about inclusion 2 seconds ago, we're supporting each individual population. What it specifically means, I know it's going to be a difficult concept. You were meeting, so your students were being serviced once a week for 40 minutes. That will continue when Mrs. Napolitano is not in the instructional rotation, which means for 1/3 of her schedule, she will be teaching all students, including your students. And then for 2/3, she will be continuing the rotation she's always kept. My concern is it really highlights the problem though. If you have 2 gifted students, 40 minutes a week is not enough. Now, part of it is for continuity. Knowing when we're going to be in and out, which we do for the whole year, we can plan our units accordingly. Okay, so you will be meeting less, but we are being proactive in making sure that the conversation with Mrs. Napolitano, we look at what the schedule means for the year, and so we can plan. Like, in many courses, you'll be rotating 1 on, 2, or 2 on, 1 off kind of thing. We can plan for that, just make sure there is continuity, and more importantly, I don't see why we couldn't be giving those students work that they're engaged in as gifted students beyond, for those 12 days. And that's what we're talking about, 12-day span before we're back on. That being said, though, I've had conversations with numerous parents of gifted students, and my heart breaks when I hear that while they do appreciate the services that we're providing, they are not enough. And so this has to be a step in the direction to provide what truly is enough. And that's where I was going in my previous district. If you look at West Windsor, Plainsboro, and their information on PRISM and gifted and talented, the elementary students receive gifted instruction all the time, because we've given the teachers, going back to previous questions, professional development and resources, so they can, and what I mean by that is they're offering every single student the opportunity to pursue their passions. But when it comes to the students who are gifted, they're not waiting for that 1 40-minute period 1 time a week. They're accessing through computers and through their general classroom teacher the kind of content that stimulates, engages, excites them at the appropriate level. And that's what we're working toward. And part of that is making sure that we have specialists in every single building dealing with the general population and the general teachers. It goes back to the question that was before. If we're to raise level of instruction for everyone, teachers are busy, we have very little time, we have to make sure we give them the right resources and the right training so that we can do that. In the past, what we've done is that these kids need more. So let's take one person and run her around 5 buildings, trying to get to know every single student, and give each of those students 40 minutes a week. I'd like to, multiply that by 10 times, so that the students are pursuing themselves. And that's one of the big things about giftedness, is self-direction. If we're waiting for someone to come to us for 1 40-minute period a week, then we're really not encouraging gifted behavior in those that we've identified as gifted. What we're trying to do is, and again, this is a step, so to be clear, and that's what I said early on, I've had conversations with individual parents, and again, I do, as far as the communication piece goes, we should have made a much bigger deal of this, got out on the website and allowed questions, but this is the kind of conversation that we want. So I appreciate, sometimes I know it's difficult to come to the microphone, but you can email me, call me, or come here. These are the kind of conversations we want to have about our kids. That being said, it's a step in the right direction. It looks like less, but what's allowing us to do is build a foundation for more, and again, you have students, a 4th grader?
I have a 4th grader and a 6th grader.
The 4th
My
grader
6th grader has
Right.
really lost the benefit of it because it's been cut so
Well,
tremendously.
again, what's been cut? The individual teachers trying to handle the entire district between them.
Excuse me, I mean to interject, but there were 3 teachers.
Right.
And
what
that
I
was
mean
the
by that
problem,
is,
and the 3 teachers were able, I think, to learn about each student, especially because they were regularly in the classroom twice a week.
and I agree with you, what I'm saying is now you're talking about 2 40-minute periods a week with 3 staff members. What I'm saying to you is that with a losing battle, if we're asking individual staff members, 3, 5, 10, we could have 1 in every building. You're still talking about waiting for that kind of instruction until that teacher comes in. And what I'm talking about is making sure that kind of instruction is in the classroom all the time. And that's informing all of our teachers and all of our students. And that's the challenge. And it's possible. Only because we made it possible. And again, we weren't the first one to do it. There are programs that do this. So yes, is it less? Yes, it's going to look like one out of every 3 cycles. And I want to be clear on that because it is. Absolutely.
I mean, that's significant. I feel like that's significant. And unfortunately, I'm wondering how the rest of the regular educators in the building are going to step up and be able to do that. And what resources are they being given to identify children that they need to give maybe something a little more challenging in a classroom of 20 children, 22, 25?
Exactly right.
I just find that, I mean, while the program wasn't perfect and while the program wasn't at the level that it needed and should be,
Right.
it was something offered above and beyond what the kids were getting. I'm concerned because it seems like they're going to only be able to teach to a certain level, because there's going to be children that are going to have a little harder time getting to that level, and then there's other children that are going to be kind of stay behind.
And what I'm telling you is, if you look at those classrooms, the teachers don't teach to one specific level. They teach to 20 specific kids.
Right.
And that's what we have to get to. So that the student who's gifted, and it works in districts, and that's what we have to get to. Think about a general classroom. It's talking about getting other kids. You're not talking about the teacher that spends every day with them.
Right.
They know those kids. But again, your point well taken. What resources, what training are we putting in the hands of these teachers so that they can certainly search? But again, part of the issue is, and this is one of the issues that they found, is when you separate those students, you end up not pushing them as far as you could push those students because you separated them from the relationship that they have with the other students in class. I don't mean peer teaching, peer tutoring, anything like that. I'm not saying that the gifted students should be teaching the other students. That's acting as a co-teacher. That's not learning. I'm not speaking of that at all. I'm making sure that the activities and the content in each classroom is specific to individual students. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, I understand that as well. However, I sat in during, I think it was May, where parents were allowed to kind of come into the classroom. And during the reading, I mean, I guess it was a reading period. I sat there, there was a student struggling to read. And, I mean, reading a paragraph, and it took a really long time. That would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry to say.
Well,
but
both of
it
you,
would
the
be
students
difficult.
struggling in front of everybody else, or your students who read it in the first try and
Right.
going, why can't we move forward? But this is a bigger issue when it comes to our general instruction
Right.
across the K-6 level. And that's why we have to move this forward.
There's got to be something out there for all levels. And you know what I mean? Like, from the kids that are struggling to the kids that need more, and I don't see more.
I can tell you that this board, our staff is committed to that, the idea that we're not moving everyone at the same point. We need to be moving everyone where they are focused. And that's, the description that you give is a description you probably can find in classrooms, maybe here, if you were here. That's not what we want in classrooms. That's really not servicing anyone. We want to make sure that we talked about this already when it comes to literacy instruction. The number one thing students need to learn in the elementary levels is how to pick out an appropriate text, both for them and for their purpose. And I've had conversations. We had 3 conversations last week, moving in that direction and making sure that you have a print-rich environment in every classroom so that a student at any level can find an appropriate just right book. It's a whole different way of thinking about literacy instruction, but that's where we're going. To make sure that every single student isn't being given the same book that they either can read, can't read, it's too easy to read, they're not interested in it, because then they won't read. The idea that they can pick out a just right book and everyone's reading. But this happens in districts, it does.
Now, how will this also affect the art program? I mean, you're placing a teacher or teachers that have nothing to do with art. So is that what the process is? You're taking?
No, what we're able to do is be creative with the art program, free of instructional time and 3 other components. I mean, a lot of people are saying we're trying to plug something into it. What we've been doing, we've been having conversations about the character ed, the tech, and about enrichment pretty much since I arrived. We're trying to figure out where in the day we can make that happen.
Okay.
We were able to, and I don't know if I was clear in my previous, in my opening remarks, but the entire grade level curriculum for art, students are being exposed to in kindergarten, in first grade, and second grade. We're now being able to guarantee that it's consistent because the art teachers are talking and working together. So we were able to work the art program in the time that was needed with the resources that we have, saving resources, if you will, which can be directed elsewhere, and open up instructional priorities and instructional time so we can do some of this other work that we thought was critical.
So, but again, to be clarifying in terms of the art teacher, there's 4 art teachers.
Yes.
There's 5 buildings.
Yes.
They're going to rotate.
Yes.
Then what? I don't understand. So I thought the problem is that we need to fill in spots.
No, and that's why I'm saying people.
So the teachers, so the art will stay the same. They will all be exposed to art the same amount of times every week?
Every single student we're receiving, all 4 teachers will rotate through art.
Mm-hmm.
We can actually expose them to the entire curriculum through a 36-day cycle, as opposed to a 45-day cycle. And what that means is all 4 teachers will spend 36 days in each of the 5 buildings. The remaining 36 days are where we can find the instructional time for enrichment, character education, and technology. And that's what we're able to do. When talking to teachers, we can, just because you have 180 days to cycle through doesn't mean that 180 days are necessary based on the curriculum. And we had 5 different programs running, and they were wonderful. But depending on where you go shouldn't define what you learn and what you're exposed to as a student. And so getting the art teachers together and making sure, and this is happening beyond art. This idea of consistency has been something we've been struggling with for a while, at least for a year I've been here. Making sure that just because you go to Yennefer or Washington doesn't define what program you get. You come to nothing. And so we have to make sure you receive a rigorous, consistent program that's open to everyone. And that's one of the moves that we did. And in doing this, we saved resources for sure. But telling the art teachers, we're going to get through, not get through in a rush, right? Every student will be exposed to the same curriculum. And part of it is with them talking to each other and sharing ideas, they're finding better and more creative ways to do that. They're also lending their expertise to each other because they all come with different passions. That allowed us, we've been looking at the day, we're still talking about schedule. We have a group of teachers coming together this year to look at the schedule again because we want to move in a more current direction so we can open up those things and more experiences for kids.
So the art teachers are going to rotate throughout all 5 schools?
Yes.
All 4 teachers?
Yes.
So is that going to happen with the music teachers as well?
No. Different curriculum, it takes a different level of resource. And again, technically, if you look at our music program, we can add staff just to build a program right now because the staff we have is maxed out. And people misunderstand because if you look at a music teacher schedule, there are blanks in the schedule because that's when they pull for lessons. And those lessons change on a daily basis. But this is one of the things where people look at a piece of paper and they start saying, why is that not the same as mine? And there are reasons for all this, and I'm happy to explain them all. But our music teachers are completely booked at this point. And talking to Mr. Kandari, one of the issues is I want Mr. Kandari to help build more consistency in the music program. Yet he's teaching for 5 classes. He's the only coordinator teaching more than 2. And really we're trying to keep the coordinators to teach 1 because we need them in the K-6s. And so he's teaching between this building and that. Thank God he's Mr. Kandari, otherwise it would be impossible to get him to. I mean, we need that consistency in that level, and this is where we're moving to. But it was a great question. But just because they're both specialists doesn't mean they serve the same purpose or follow the same curriculum. It's a great question. But even within music, you have your instrumental program, you have your vocal program, you have your general music. So even those combinations, each building is a little different populations, special needs students, things that kind of guide how the schedule has to go. It makes things look different. What we're trying to do is we can look different depending on the kids that are in our classroom or in our building, but we have to provide the same consistency and rigor program. And that's what we're trying to build to.
I was just wondering that perhaps the music program also, each
Would that
teacher would have something to bring to the table then. If we're using the same reason for the art teacher to be, to provide different approaches to art, I'm wondering if that's something that you consider for.
And it's something that Mr. Kandari, we talked about all manner of schedule.
Not that I'm saying you should do that.
Of
I'm
course.
just saying that if we're using that as a basis for why certain things are occurring, is that, and am I over time?
I think that you can come back up if you're changing topics.
I'm good.
I feel like we're answering questions that a lot of people in the
Yeah,
audience
they're
have.
good questions.
But I'm still disappointed. Just FYI.
Hello, my name is Sean Fitzpatrick, and I would like to comment on how Mr. Lustig is doing with the GT program. I used to be in the GT program since I was in 3rd grade. And I'd say the way he wants to rebuild it is excellent, allowing it to be used for all students of all different levels. Because every single student is smart in their own way. They each have their own potential for the future. This can allow them to get to their potential, and then that will make them have a better future. This is why this is a great program, and I would like to say thank you for what you're doing.
Are you happy to in school? Are you happy to in school?
Yeah.
That's all I want to hear.
Hi, Amy Christman, 237 River Road. Although I appreciate Sean's sentiments regarding the GT programming, I apologize in advance
to the gallery of parents here. I did just want to add some comments. I was curious as to if there was any consulting of Mrs. Napolitano regarding the changes within the program, because she is an experienced teacher, especially in gifted and talented, with over, I believe, 20 years of GT plus regular teaching. She's been president of this, I think it's called the steering board. They run the academically speaking program. So I was curious if there was any consultating with her before there was some, you can say it's not getting cut, but the real purpose of a gifted and talented program is to meet the needs of identified students. It is. So you can say we're going to do it in the classroom with everybody, but I can guarantee you are not going to meet the kids who are on the other end of the spectrum and who are looking for more and who are looking to thrive. Once a week, I agree, is very limited. It's barely a program. It really is, and I agree. But at least it was something. At least it was something for these kids to look forward to, with peers that think very similarly to them on a consistent basis, and with a teacher who knows how to address the needs of these students. I don't believe you're going to find that in every classroom, every teacher is going to be able to address the needs of those students consistently. So it is very disappointing. I mean, when you talked about kids getting instruction all day, every day that they need, I mean, that's a whole nother time me coming up here to talk. But I'm just curious if the board thinks, don't they think there's going to be a negative impact on these students who are missing out on this? I'd like to know. I know I'm not supposed to address anybody individually. And when Sylvia mentioned about, 2 times a week and 3 teachers, at that point you would have thought, and I know it's before your time, of building the program, and then it gets cut. So again, it is just disappointing. So, not all students are created equal. I mean, and I get the point about just moving the children forward from where they're at to where they need to go. But, let's be realistic, let me say that. There's certain standards that they have to meet. There's certain children who are just better students. And they need to be pushed and applied, and concepts applied to them that they're not going to get in the everyday classroom, that they don't get in the everyday classroom. So I just think I don't know, I feel it's very irresponsible of this board to have cut that program even more. If you want to offer enrichment to everybody, hire another teacher to offer enrichment to everybody, and keep the GT teacher as is, or get her another teacher to help her, and pull the kids out more. Or figure out something that's going to be more positive for the identified students. I mean, I just feel like this is a bad joke, to be honest with you, and I'm being punked. To be honest with you, it's very disappointing. I mean, and I know there are people in my school who are also, they're just upset. There's a lot of people just upset about it. And I know change is always a hard thing for people to take and to do. But I mean, I just wish this wasn't set in stone. And you could think of a way to help those identified students more. I mean, I know I've had the discussion with you about heterogeneous grouping and homogeneous grouping, and we just kind of disagree on that topic, which is fine. But I don't know. There just seems to me, before you take that drastic step, there might have been some other options with regards to hiring the teachers or getting permanent subs to come in to do an enrichment program, filling them in. I don't know, I don't know if I feel like was every option truly explored?
And we had that conversation before. I'm trying to talk. Mrs. Napolitano, when I came in July, we sat down for the whole morning to talk about philosophy of G&T. And what's surprising is we see eye to eye. She's Renzulli trained and Renzulli believes. And that's meeting every student where they are and accelerating. That's inclusion, going back to an earlier comment. But there's also, and again, this idea of peer connection. I'm not saying that the only thing that will happen for GT is that they will spend every second in a regular classroom and magically everything is going to be perfectly tailored to them as individuals. I'm saying there still needs to be pull-out. If we're following research based on gifted and talented, we have to give them time to sit with their peers. And by peers, I mean gifted peers, not necessarily chronological peers. So we're not saying that that's going away. And in the system, it's not going away. So I don't necessarily disagree. And Mrs. Napolitano knew that we want to move. We've actually explored a few computer systems that are out there to do exactly this, to see what we want to do for the district to bring them in. Our goal is to try and make every single teacher that much more. I mean, we've got fantastic staff. We put a better resource in their hands, and they're that much more able. I know that I hope you understand when I say heterogeneous versus homogeneous, I don't think it's a stark line. It has to be one or the other.
No.
And so we did have all of those conversations about where the program has to go, and she was concerned staff-wise. I mean, she's one person.
Yes.
And so how do we best use her to build that staff and use the gifts that she has, because she comes to us with a wealth of knowledge about gifted and talented. I think the hardest distinction that needs to be made is when you talk about cutting a program and building a program, I don't necessarily think we're on the same page about the definition of the word program. Because I don't think, even if I hired one for every building, that the pullout that they could do is really what we want for a program. Because what ends up happening is they go back to their regular class. And again, my concern was even when we had the 3, I'm talking to parents who have children who are older and experienced that. I still have them coming to me and saying, but then they went back to their regular class and their needs were not being met. And that's the majority of the time that they're here. And so what we're trying to do is, yes, there are budget issues, yes, there are scheduling issues for sure. But at the same time, we're trying to make decisions that take the whole program and make it better for everyone. I don't mean the gifted and talented students should suffer so that everyone else could get better. I know it's not what you're saying either. We can all be successful, but I want you to understand that we're still looking at every subpopulation. But one thing I have to clarify, though, I'm talking with Marsha and Mrs. Napolitano as well, there's a huge difference between gifted and schoolhouse gifted.
Right.
And depending on how you identify,
correct,
you may be ruling one out in lieu of the other. And because of that, not actually targeting gifted students. A lot of our gifted students are gifted in areas beyond math, language, arts, the areas that we test. And so because of that, we're never identifying them at all. What I'm talking about is building a system that allows each of our students to feel good about themselves and find out where they're passionate and possibly where they're gifted. But then what has to happen from there is not just instruction generally changing, where that has to happen, but there have to be these extension activities for groups of students with like ability and like passion to get together and have that connection. And we're not ruling that out. Please understand, we're trying to build a comprehensive program. What I'm saying is that I don't think going from 2/3 to 1/3 based on what you have, especially when we can figure out creatively how to make sure that most of those experiences stay completely intact, that we're actually losing, we're shuffling our resources so we can build even better. And that's what we're, now I realize, and again, people are disappointed, it's changed, things like that. It is, mathematically, it makes sense objectively. We were getting once a week, now we're getting every week of the year, now we're getting once a week, 2/3 of the weeks of the year.
yeah,
That's less.
you look at the math.
And I do understand that, but what I'm asking people to understand, like soccer, is you have to pass the ball to the right players so you can move forward. This has to be a step in the right direction. Here's the thing, I don't think we'll necessarily get everyone to understand or believe until we build the program. And it's going to take some time. But this is where we need to go for the district, and certainly for those students.
Yeah, but what about the students who are lost in the mix while you're building the program? I mean, just like she said about, sitting in the classroom and student reading, if you have a child who's in 5th grade, and I have 4 kids, 6th, 4th, and twins in 2nd grade, and 2 of them are identified, and I have, my 6th grader who's, reading novels from high school and understanding them and talking with me about them. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember this, So how do you channel that into a 6th grade class? And with everything, and with math, and with geography, and You know, there's just so many, I mean,
Actually, very easily. And our teachers are very capable of doing that. One of the big issues is that we don't have the resources in the classroom, which we can take care of as a district. But there's absolutely no reason why you can't have someone reading at second grade level sitting next to somebody reading at 10th grade level. And both of them not only reading at their own individual levels, but learning together and getting better. And that's what I'm saying. They do this in many, many districts. And it's going to be one of the big issues. But what I'm saying is I also don't think that your students are losing out going from once a week for 40 weeks to once a week 32 weeks.
but even if, you might not think that, but if you were to poll those GT students.
Of course, absolutely.
And you said to them, did you really enjoy your inventions fair and the 2 months of preparation you did? Yes. Did you enjoy the bridges? Did you love doing the academically speaking? Did you,
Law fair.
and law fair, well, law fair offers to everybody, which is fine. And did you enjoy all the separate, projects, however, how she works in her groupings and stuff? I can guarantee you that they're going to say yes.
And I would agree with you
95% of
100%.
them don't care about being pulled out and going back into a class and having to make up work.
But my comment was that I have a feeling through the course of this year, you're going to talk to the students again, having the same activities, because there's no reason, when you mention those specific activities, that we cannot offer the appropriate preparation and then exposure to those activities with the given schedule, which is why I'm saying it may look less in numbers, but there's no reason why those students can't successfully participate in all of those activities unless we just determine as a staff we're not going to let it happen. That's what I'm saying. This is why I don't look at it as a cut, I look at it as an opportunity to really take a meaningful step forward for everyone. I'd also say that I'm walking around, and I love those. I mean, here last year, when we were in Spring Garden School, seeing those inventions, I'd love to see what some of the other kids would have done. I really would.
No, I mean, trust me, I'm a rational person, and I think you have to give a child an opportunity to prove themselves, by all means. But right now, I'm thinking about my kids.
And you should.
So, so I'm thinking about my kids who are already on day 3 is telling me he's bored out of his mind. LA for 3 periods is killing him already, and the pace at which they move is painstakingly slow, Mom. How am I going to last this year? And what do I say to that?
And I'm telling you,
Give me an answer.
I have 2 children, and my job isn't to worry about them, it's to worry about the children that are here and to represent the board and inform the board. I can tell you I'm worried about him too, in the sense that giving him 1 hour a week, even if it was every week, to latch on to barely keep him in school versus making sure the instruction every second of the whole school day engages him, that's my goal. And that has to happen. What I'm saying is that I'm not content having the 1 hour we can point to. Okay, because I don't think that's enough for the students in Nutley, nor to our teachers. So we want to make sure that, but this is, you're saying it again to me, even with that program, it seems we're not meeting his needs.
Right.
So really, we're not talking about the issue. The issue isn't the 1 hour a week. The issue is how do we meet your son's needs? And that's the conversation we have to get to. So if this changed, if nothing else brought up the conversation, then fantastic. But I'm listening to you, I'm hearing the same conversation I had with other parents, which is that, 1 hour a week isn't enough. And that's why I'm saying the way we're looking at the word program in this instance is not really the most effective way. That one, and Mrs. Napolitano is fantastic. She does a great job with the kids. Ask the kids. See what the kids do. What I'm saying is she can do a fantastic job with most kids. And all of our teachers are doing fantastic jobs, but we have to give them more resources and a different training. We have to change the philosophy. But there's absolutely no reason to take a group of 20 kids and you point to the middle and say, go there. That's not how we teach. Okay? You look at where every single student is, and you push them as hard as you possibly can, knowing them as individuals. And then every year they grow. And if we really do that as a district, I will be blown away, as most people, I think, when you look at how a kid progresses from K through 12. But there's no reason that your son should have to hope for 1 hour a week, and now I apologize, but now it's 1 hour a week, 2 out of every 3 weeks.
Maybe, two on, 1 off is like.
Well, not happening. Depending on what day Mrs. Napolitano was visiting schools, we could never guarantee that it was every.
No, because you got days off, you throw a snow day there, you throw.
But think about it this way: if we get the classrooms to be the way you and I both, whether we agree to how we're getting there, both agree they should be. It doesn't matter when the days off are, because every time a kid walks into the school, he or she's getting what he or she needs, and that's where we have to get to.
Thank you.
I think they were too nervous to eat dinner.
Hi everyone, my name is Kathy Savio, 15 Hawthorne Avenue, and I have 2 children at Yanacor School. We are here so that you can explain to them why their art teacher is leaving. I cannot explain to them, because I don't really understand, but if you explain it to them, maybe they can understand it better and come to terms with it. They've grown to love our art teacher, and they're looking forward to the sixth grade project. That's number one issue they have. And number two, these particular 4 children were such an instrumental part of winning that contest for the library for Samantha On. 3 of the children went to school with her, and she was just, she was a big part of our lives. And to take a little bit away from the library without letting the kids know who worked so hard to win that contest. So I'd appreciate if you could explain the art program and explain why part of the library was taken away. You can explain it way better than I can. That's why we're here.
Hi, girls. You guys like art? I don't know if you heard me before, but one of the things that we're worried about is that everybody should experience all the wonderful things you experience. And in a way, you get to experience some of the wonderful things that the other kids experience with their teachers. I want to make sure, though, if you like art, that you see as much art in as many different ways as every other student. So when you get to middle school and you come here, you're as prepared as everybody else, because I, as a superintendent, would feel awful if you got to 7th grade and realized as much as I loved my teacher and as many wonderful things as she did, I missed out on some things. Does that make sense? So I want to make sure, and this board wants to make sure, that we give you as much exposure to as many different avenues of art as possible, so that when you get up here and can continue to pursue it, you never have that feeling of, I wish I had. Okay, because we did our best to make sure you did have. Does that make sense? Unfortunately, that's the one that makes sense. I know that part of the library was dedicated to a student, and that student was special. We sometimes have to make difficult decisions to make sure that you guys can go and have as much opportunity as possible. And unfortunately, and I spent some time, I don't know how many parents are here, but I spent a good deal of time at Anacross School, especially in the spring, because of the issues that we've been having. And this board is wrestling with the issue of facilities, how much space, because we have to have the space for you guys to learn in order to make sure every single student who lives in the Anacross area can have what you guys have. What grade are you? Multiple grades? All 6? Okay. You have a good experience at Anacross? Did you like going to school there? We want everybody who moves there to have that same, spell out that you're smiling, to have the same experience. Does that make sense? In order to do that, they have to have a classroom. And unfortunately, and I apologize, maybe it's my fault, but we ran out of classrooms. And so in order to teach everyone, we had to create a classroom. And I know Mrs. Corolla's here, Mr. Nicolette's here, Ms. Villani's here. Mr. Sorensen was a big help in this. His name is Mr. Sorensen. I will tell him you said hi. We had to find a space where we could do instruction. And what I want to let you know is everything that was dedicated into that spot, and for those reasons, is still there. And there are going to be kids in that space who are doing really important work for them, and it's still in memory of, someone special. And again, I don't know if you heard me before, but one of the things we're trying to do is a big district, and a lot goes on, but we have to be better communicators. We hope that you're better than we are when you get older. But this is something that I know is important to you, and we should have come out and told you what was going on, explained it, and let you ask questions, not just walk in and go, oh my gosh, what happened? And that's a problem that I apologize for. We should have communicated, but what I can let you know is that space is a learning environment for a lot of kids now that they need, and the work that's going on there can be a memory of somebody special, and they're growing because of it. So you can definitely feel good about that and tell your friends that. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
It's late now, right? Did we do homework?
We gotta go home.
My name is Devin Holtfelder. I'm at 37 South Spring Garden Avenue, and I'm changing the subject. My concern is with high school. I have a daughter in 11th grade, and I have 2 questions, and I apologize for bringing up these subjects. But the first one is the English department. She's taking AP English, and
I think she'll be fine there. It's not a big problem, but if she was to have a problem, she was assured in the beginning or even the end of last year that she could drop down to honors English, which doesn't exist anymore. And I was just hoping this isn't the trend, and I'm sure there's a very good explanation. Maybe there were 4 kids in the class, whatever. But I'm just a little concerned about there being no honors English class for 11th grade. So do you want to comment on that?
Okay. This goes back to the whole year when we rolled out the program for studies. So the board worked with the teachers, administrators to define what the academic program should be. One of the issues the high school is having is that we are running competing courses, is what we call it. You have an honors and you have an AP at the same level. And honors, right now, the way it's defined, is below the AP, is less rigorous than the AP. The exact opposite should be true. Honors should be more rigorous than advanced placement. And one of the problems we were having is that, and Mr. Williams has been making a lot of noise about this in a good way, we're lowering expectations by allowing those competing courses to exist. Now, we wanted to phase them out, have these kinds of communications, and unfortunately, scheduling became an issue, and we couldn't offer both, which is what we wanted to do philosophically anyway. So my understanding was that every single parent was affected. Now, if you were already in AP, you wouldn't have been contacted, but we had to reduce the section of honors. Most of those kids stepped up to take AP. And you know what? This is me coming from the superintendent. They should have been there to begin with. If they felt they were ready for honors and they're ready for AP, and us letting them slide for a year isn't doing them a justice. It's not doing them a service. It's not why we're here. The other issue is that there should not be that huge a gap between our regular classes and our advanced placement. So you shouldn't have to have the concern of, well, if I'm struggling in AP, I can drop down to honors, but not to have to worry about going regular. Our regular should be, and we've described it this way for a year. If you envision those parents of high school students, you know that we had regular classes, we had honors classes, we had AP classes, and if you looked at the way we used to weight them, that's how they were perceived. Not taught, but perceived. If we were to be a competitive district, we would have regular classes, AP classes, and then honors classes. And we wouldn't have competing classes, which means if you're strong enough for an honors class or an AP class, you should be in that one class. By allowing kids to kind of pick and choose, we're allowing them to pick their own level of difficulty, not pushing them, which is going to be easiest. Where am I going to get the consolidate without having to get too much, as opposed to, let me roll up my sleeves with teacher support and really push myself. I apologize that you were told that, got caught kind of in the middle, but that's why.
It's not a concern for me, but it might have been. And also, the GPA would be affected.
Yes, no, absolutely. Because the competing course, and that's 100% accurate. We did get rid of the differentiation in GPA between honors and AP, and by getting rid of the competing courses, we're only offering one level of rigor. So if that's where you want, if you want to push your GPA, take the rigorous course. Now, and the AP class in this case.
Because it's the same now as honors.
Exactly, we're weighted the same, and we're pushing kids the same. In my opinion, if you look at College Board on their website, advanced placement is designed to mimic freshman year college level work. I think our students are perfectly capable with the right support, whether it's juniors, seniors, and some of them sophomores and freshmen, you're probably here in the audience today, to handle freshman level college work. So why are we not pushing them to do that if they can?
Okay, well, along those lines, I'm going to bring up my next topic of the, I don't know if it's the curriculum or in general the science, specifically chemistry. I don't know if our school considers the subject test besides the SAT test. I know they have programs to help kids boost their SATs. I don't know, you did private lessons to help her with their SAT, but she recently took a science subject test, and now she's doing very good on her SATs, but really poorly on that chemistry test, and I'm very disappointed considering she already took chemistry and she's in AP Chem right now, and it's kind of past the point, or could be, I don't know if it's past the point or not now, I don't know what to do. Are we going to start enhancing subject testing?
I don't have a specific answer to your situation, but I can tell you that there's an issue. If you've been looking at the presentations I've been giving on student performance, one of the key things that we're doing differently now is, number one, we're assessing internally. We've got some common assessments that define rigor for us and see how kids are doing. But we're also anchoring those assessments. I gave a presentation last meeting on AP, as an example. We're anchoring those assessments against those externals to see if our assessments are as rigorous or more rigorous, which they should be, than those external anchors. Because we're writing and we're teaching to Nutley kids. Those tests are written to a national standard. As far as I'm concerned, we're better than that. And so if you look at performance on our assessments, and this I've done in multiple districts now, after you get a year's worth of data, and we're pushing this in AP right now, to start measuring, seeing what's going on in our classes versus what's going on after them. Case in point with Ms. DeVilla working on looking at GPA here, and college success. Because Clearinghouse is giving us what we call 12 plus data on students who attend 2 and 4 year colleges. We want to see how our kids are doing, and one of the things we want to do with that is start looking to see if our grades are indicative of how successful they're moving on. So to answer your question right now, I don't have the exact answer, but as far as your question moving forward, that's exactly what we're doing. There you go. And we're trying to build that system. Common assessments are about teachers having the right information. And part of that is, I was at a meeting in Trenton with colleges, representatives of colleges and universities who were telling us that there's a huge disconnect between 12th grade and freshman year. And that's part of the issue, is we need to know that. So again, I wouldn't necessarily say our instruction is wrong, but those assessments may be assessing something that we weren't. But we still have to know that, because the kids are going to be expected to do that moving forward. And those are the conversations that we're having.
It's true, and the kids get this false sense of security too
Absolutely.
when they're doing so well in school, and then all of a sudden they're not doing well because of their scores.
Absolutely.
So I'm very concerned about scores. Now I have to, on my own, go for extra chemistry tutoring or whatever tutoring I need to do so that her subject test scores go up. And it's not a matter of her not doing well. She didn't learn the topics. She just had no idea what the questions were. So now I'm going to go to the science department next week and maybe mention it to the science head or whoever.
Mr. Banyan, he's well aware. Not necessarily your individual, but believe me, the conversation. And again, all I can tell people is that we're now having those conversations. We've talked about the SAT subject tests, the SAT2s as they used to be called, and using them as anchors to see, because they're data that we have to look at. And if there's a disconnect, again, it's not that we're doing something wrong per se, but we have to understand why there's a disconnect to make sure the kids are completely prepared.
Yeah, I'm not trying to accuse, I'm just
No,
disappointed, and I want to correct it for the future. It would be nice. Thank you.
I'd just like to comment a little bit. I mean, the discussion so far tonight has been centered around a lot of change that is occurring, and I think that we have to, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Lazovic in the fact that this change is occurring, necessary changes for the district. And Rome wasn't built in a day, but I'm sure Mr. Lazovic is trying to do it in a day. But it does take a little bit of time to move these things in the right direction. There's a certain amount of patience and tolerance that we do have to have.
And it's not just me. I mean, the teachers have been asking a lot of these questions for a long time, and sometimes it's been the tools, things that the board has allowed us to bring in, that these teachers now can make these connections and start analyzing data so we know exactly where those gaps are. But the staff has been asking a lot of these questions, K-12, for a very long time, and we're trying to help them answer it by giving them the right tools so that they can have those conversations.
Mr. President, just to continue on that, I know the question was raised before that something is set in concrete. As we all know, it's not. There's board members that have questions about the GT, there's board members that have questions about the science curriculum, and so on and so on. That's why it's just an ongoing process. And nothing is set. We all have those concerns, and we'll be talking to the superintendent, as we have been in the past, trying to move forward in the right direction.
Next person.
Good evening. My name is Isabel Haynes. I live on 16 College Place. Since in third grade, I was picked to be a GT student, and I felt really special and more confident to do better in school since I was picked. And I had a lot of fun with Mrs. Napolitano, and I feel like I learned a lot doing her projects. And even when it was cut to 1 day a week, I feel that we didn't get enough time to finish all our projects perfectly, because we would have days off, and sometimes the teachers would need us for very important things that we were missing in class. And I want my sister to have the great chance that I did if she makes the GT test in the activities, and I want her to have the most fun that she can. And I'm concerned that if it's all if we get cut more, we may not have enough time to do the fun activities that we got to do.
Thank you for saying that. I want your sister to have that opportunity, whether or not she makes the test or not. I want her to experience all the stuff I can see in your face that has meant so much to you. I want her to experience that too. I want to make sure you experience that and everyone does. Mrs. Napolitano's a lot of fun, right?
Yes.
She knows a lot, doesn't she?
Yes.
She's also been carrying this by herself for every kid in the district. we have to find a better way so you get more, but also your sister gets more. I want to make sure she has everything that you just talked about. So thank you for saying that. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
First time I get to do this. From the Provost, 312 East Passaic Avenue. Last week, or last meeting, was my first time on the microphone, so here I am again. I just wanted to say, first of all, I don't know how to address anybody, but the superintendent of schools, I want to say a big thank you for the parent portal, which I love, love, love. And I've been asking for at least 7 years for some more use of the internet technology. And for many years, I got a lot of blank stares, and then you come along, and a year later, we have a parent portal. Thank you. All three were identified in the GT program. Very proud parent, but I really don't feel like I have anything to do with that, just the luck of the draw. I do want to, I have actually agreed with you almost 100% on everything that you said tonight and last week about the program, the GT program, what we're calling the GT program. The only reason why I'm up here, and I'll keep this very brief, is that we're still calling it a GT program. And to quote you from this evening, you even said, previously Nutley didn't have a true GT program. So why are we even calling it a GT program? There's a big difference between enrichment and what is known as GT, or gifted and talented. So I'm asking you, and the board and the schools, if we can just stop calling it a GT program, so that I feel like we build in this complacency because there are parents who aren't aware that we don't have a GT program. So there might be a first grade parent or a kindergarten parent or a parent new to the school system who thinks there's a GT program that their student might be in this year or next year, and they don't even know that there isn't a program. I'm the first person to say that, I didn't even really think I wanted my son to still, who's in 6th grade now, to be continued to be pulled out of class once a month. I love Mrs. Napolitano. She did wonders with my older 2 children, but for my younger one to be pulled, I think it was like once a month last year. It was very inconsistent. I could tell that from my previous 2 children, he wasn't getting nearly as much out of it as they did. And I thought at the time when this system first started, when they were in 3rd grade, which was about 5 years ago, that it would be built on, as everybody said. Not only that, it went in the opposite direction. Let's just call it an enrichment program. This way, everybody will know what it is, okay? And no one will be disappointed. And those who want to work for a true GT program, which we all agree we need, will come on board and help the cause to provide the Nutley school system with a true GT program. That's all I want to ask everybody. You don't even have to respond. I just want to ask. Because I even have, this is from Mr. Carney, put a welcome back to school letter together. It's a beautiful letter, but it says here in the 4th paragraph, technology will be taught by Mrs. Chris Osasia, and Mrs. Marcia Napolitano will continue to head our gifted and talented program. So some parents think we have one. We don't. That's all I can say. Okay.
And I are at the same height, so that's fine. Kimberly Donahue, 27 Raymond Avenue. I'm not here to speak about the GT program. I'm here with my usual cry that everybody across the board be on board with all of the children being treated with their strengths and their weaknesses, so that we're all teaching them to be the best they can be. And the GT program falls under that, the special ed program falls under that. And when we start talking about, like Diane mentioned, bringing the staff up to speed on identifying children, whether it's for their strengths or their weaknesses, or their gifted and talented abilities, or their lack of abilities. I would be remiss if I didn't mention what happened to my son Thomas last year with math, and it's not to drop anything in your lap, but since we're having the discussion, now would be a good time to mention that my son Thomas has consistently scored advanced proficient in math and advanced proficient in English. But my son Thomas has a 504. He's an ADHD kid. He struggled in 4th and 5th and 6th grade because I struggled with the idea of putting him on medicine, and I ultimately did. And I'm glad I waited, but I'm glad I did it. You know, I needed him to mature a whole bit. But last year, for middle school, he was identified as a 504 kid instead of a kid good in math, or great in math, however you want to put it. And he was put in a classroom with kids who had IEPs and 504s. Just as a systematic grouping, here we are, and he gets to school, and he comes home, and he's about 3 weeks in, and he's frustrated. And my son takes a little time to mention things. We're in the 3rd week of school, and he says, Mommy, I have Mrs. So-and-so in my class. Mommy, I have Liam's friend in my class. Now, my son Liam, as you know, is autistic, and a friend of Liam's means to me, I've taught my son to say he's a friend of Liam's, rather than point out somebody and go, that kid has autism or that kid has an issue. It's more of that's a friend of Liam's, because it's an easier way without, drawing attention. That's how we discuss it. So he comes home and says, I have a friend of Liam's in my class. And I said, in what class, honey? And he says, in math. And I went, okay, maybe one of Liam's friends is advanced proficient in math. I mean, Liam's very good at math. Turns out, no. He was put in that class because he has a 504, and it was the teacher, and 3 aides, and 3 kids with IEPs, I think he said, and all these kids with 504s. And when my son would finish his work in 5 minutes, and the teacher really didn't belong there, we're already 3 weeks into the school, and he goes to his guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor says, it's too late. We have a policy that we don't change kids out of classes once classes have started. Now, my son didn't know, and so they have the conversation, and the teacher says to him when he finishes his work, well, why don't you bring a book in? My son's in math class. Bring in the book so that when you're done with your work, do your homework. Bring a book so that while we're teaching the other kids, you have something to do to keep you busy. Does that sound like we're teaching his abilities? My son was bored all year. He pulled B's and C's in math. Not because he couldn't have gotten an A. He could have gotten an A standing on his head. But the point being, the policy got in the way. I don't know what the teacher's rationale was, but she said, I can't give you more work. I can't give you work beyond what this class is doing. I'm not allowed to. I can't transfer you out of the class. I can't give you more work. Bring some literature. Sit and read. Do your homework for your other classes. Does that sound like we're pushing my son to excel? Not really. That's what happened last year. We got it sorted this year. Fast forward to my son Brendan, who also has ADHD. I've got him on the medicine starting for this year. I wanted to wait till his little body got a little bigger. Okay. Last year, he stumbled in the 4th marking period. He actually got a D on the final. The teacher recommendation was to move him from middle to low math. Okay, the kid got a D on the final, but he's capable of doing the work. So we have to figure out how to teach him, not drop him down to low math and make him feel bad about himself. He came home and said, they told me I'm going to low math. I'm not good at it. But yet I know he can do the work because I'm sitting with him all the time, and he's doing the work. It's just that some days he can't do the work. So my point is, there's got to be a way to make everybody happy, but I think it basically starts with looking at the policies and professional development for the teachers, so when these situations come up, whether it's for gifted or for low-level issues, or for a child who's struggling, or for one who should be in a different higher class or lower class, that the teachers have the right approach, so the students know how to feel good about themselves, whether they have to be moved up, moved down, or just supported more. And I think that's really important, and it goes to just the whole district-wide attitude towards teaching our kids, whether it's special education or not.
Diane Bolton, 53 Lakeside Drive. I just wanted to tag onto that really quick, because we do have our gifted and talented. We do have our kids with disabilities. We do have twice exceptional. If you're not familiar with it, 2E kids are gifted and talented in some areas and have disabilities in others, and then we just have our kids that struggle. Moving towards a solution, most school districts, and I believe that we have it, I can't swear to it, but what about a virtual academy? Is that an option to where you can infuse that not only into the classroom, but have the child have access to it at home, to where they could, use as a mode to either get them caught up to speed or to advance them quicker. I don't know if you have to pay it per student or it's just one long thing. For example, those of you who have kids in elementary school, they have the study island. Well, Virtual Academy is more like a school, but you have live teachers and teaching modules for specific things where you can pull that into the classroom and they can do it on their own, and it might be a solution that would be something to address all of the above. Just food for thought.
Anyone else?
Alex Rubens, 354 Hillside Ave. I also am a appreciative parent of the parent portal, as this lady is. I have children at all three levels, the high school, the middle school, and Canterbury Elementary School. And one of the features of the portal allows you to link your three kids so you don't have to remember three passwords. That's a very, special feature. And so, now in the parent portal, today they have the schedules. And will there be more information disseminated to us? I heard, I think, your progress reports, let's say, when we get this program, will be disseminated via the portal. Is that right? What about a student portal? The students will have a portal also, right? That's under construction, or is it available for them now?
It's not open yet, although when I was at the high school, sorry, my voice is finally going. When we worked with the high school students, some of them brought up this idea of real time, and they knew about it, I guess because their parents are talking to them about it. Student portal is something that we need to move to as well. But again, we have to have the right conversation. I don't want to just open it before we're prepared. We tried to make sure when we opened the parent portal, there was meaningful information in it, so that you guys were having a good experience and finding what you needed. And there's a lot more that's going to be in the parent portal as we move forward. We're also going to ask, and also going to be opening a student portal, but we were able to open the parent portal successfully because you have a reason to go there. If we didn't have information that we cared about, we'd have this big push to open the parent portal, no one would go, and then later on, when we put more meaningful things in, we'd have to have a second push. I want to make sure that when we open the student portal, that the teachers have the say in what should be in there, that the administrators do as well, and that we communicate it, go back to our theme for the night, appropriately, so that it's a meaningful place for kids to go on a regular basis, and then whether they're starting in 6th grade or second grade or 12th grade, that they keep using it for as long as they're here. But yes, we are absolutely going to offer, one of the things we looked for was not just the parent portal, but the student portal.
That would be good. Now, the other thing about the parent portal, there was a problem with my middle schooler, and some her page came up with error 500, and I found Ian on the system sent him the error, and he very expeditiously fixed the problem within like minutes after I sent him the mail, so that's a job well done. So my daughter appreciates it very much as well. She felt that the system was against her. Coming into a new school. In terms of information coming to us, when the kids receive us, I guess assignments are going to be available to them in the student portal. Could it also be made available to us in the parent portal?
When we're prepared to open up things like gradebook and homework and the rest, people open in both portals simultaneously.
So this way we can see their
100%. We talk about communication. We want to make sure the parents are equal partners in the education of their children, and we want to make sure we get that kind of information.
Right, so that this way we don't end up with a situation with this lady with her daughter having a slip on, some metrics over there, that we can have an early warning, I guess, to prevent, a situation like that where the kids, fall behind on something. Another topic that you mentioned briefly in your report about the solar PPA, is that something that you're going to be moving forward with,
Yes.
So when that comes up for referendum, if that were its own item on a referendum instead of pork barrels with technology and everything else, that's probably why it failed.